China's ambition to make the RMB a global currency has the world paying attention, but is its rise being overstated in the media? Dr. Ulrich Volz joins me over Skype. Now, why do you think there's a preoccupation with currency wars being a zero-sum game?
Well, I think it's a bit over-dramatized. So there clearly has been dissatisfaction with the US dollar, and China in particular has been trying to establish the renminbi as a competitor and an alternative to the dollar. But this is not about, completely changing the game. So not replacing the dollar as the leading currency, and the dollar will move into obscurity. As I see it, we're rather moving towards a multipolar currency system where the dollar will continue to play an important role, but not as dominant a role as before.
But then when you talk about the range of other dominating currencies, what will we see for them in the next decade?
The euro, which at its introduction was seen as a major competitor to the dollar, and there were indeed academics and also business pundits speculating that the euro might replace the dollar as the main currency. The euro obviously has suffered because of the Greek and European crisis. Over the medium run, I think that the euro will look much more attractive again and be one of the major global currencies, along with the dollar, which will continue to be an important currency, but also with the renminbi, which in the East Asian region will be the most important currency over the longer run, and also internationally will become very important. But then we might also see the emergence of regional currencies, for example, in Africa, for example, the Nigerian naira, or the South African rand, or in Latin America, where the Brazilian real might become more important. So I think we're moving towards a more diversified international monetary system.
So how long is it going to take until we get to that new world order?
The pace at which the renminbi can become a truly global currency will depend very clearly on the pace of domestic reforms, and in particular financial market reforms. To have the renminbi as a truly global investment currency, China will open up its capital account, and before doing so, deep reforms will be needed. And for the time being, the Chinese capital markets are still pretty shallow, and they're heavily market dominated, and just what we're seeing right now with the Chinese stock markets is not really building trust in Chinese capital markets. So there's quite a long way to go, and before the capital account is not open, the renminbi cannot become a true rival to the dollar.
Right, okay. So as China continues to leverage itself through currency swaps rather than a more formalized exchange rate regime, do you think that is indeed what's going to continue until this full broader process of capital market reform is completed?
Yeah, China has already set up bilateral currency swaps with a large number of central banks around the world. It's kind of difficult to keep track. It should be more than 30 now, including also the ECB, the Bank of England. And China has also been very active in promoting the renminbi in other ways. So, for example, also things like the new AIIB. This is also one way of promoting RMB usage, I'm sure.
Then if we go back to the idea of the inclusion in the Russian Bank Eurasian Economic Union, do you see that as a force for good in terms of China's global currency ambitions?
Offering the renminbi as an alternative to the dollar is offering competition to the global currency market. So I think that's very good. That's very welcome, because the US has benefited from its so-called exorbitant privilege. It has basically allowed the US to conduct any kind of monetary policy without any regard to the rest of the world. At times, this monetary policy has been very problematic for the rest of the world. So kind of competitors to the dollar can also put restraint on US monetary policy, and investors can choose. Do they have more trust in Chinese monetary policy, European monetary policy, US monetary policy, and where to diversify?
Do you think that there will ever, on the flip side, be sort of a formalized relationship where the US converts to the yuan?
Well, as I said, I believe that the dollar will continue to play a very important role. So the US will continue to conduct its trade in US dollars. There is no reason to assume that the dollar will fade into obscurity. The dollar for the time being, is still dominating the markets. And so they have a kind of advantage of incumbency. And as long as people have trust in a strong US economy and responsible monetary and fiscal policy on the US side, they will certainly want to hold dollars too. And after all, the world's biggest capital markets are in the US. And so there are vast investment opportunities. The US economy is becoming very dynamic again.